cliche somewhat to have these presidential addresses. Some people don't seem to inspired by it, but some other people might find it inspiring. Do you find it refreshing and inspiring that the president is addressing the nation at this time with the economic hardships and the difficulties of everyday life?
Yeah, under normal circumstances, I would say that it's a good thing. It should be a welcome development. A leader should always address the people he's leading. He leads, right?
Hmm.
Tell them his plans, his intentions. Sometimes it should even be an interactive, session
Hmm.
where people get to ask him questions. That way he feels the pulse of the nation and how the people he's leading feels about things. These people are very wealthy people. A lot of times they're very much detached from the
The
day-to-day,
realities.
actually the realities of the common man. So there's no other way for them to know but to interact with people. Obasanjo did that a lot, during his days. I think it was every Saturday. Forgotten what he called that program, but it was a very good one. He was on national radio every weekend, every Saturday, I guess, talking to the people and hearing from the people.
Yeah.
So that way, it's not people that work with you that are telling you what the people are saying. You're hearing directly from the people, because we know that a lot of times the people who work with the presidency are not very sincere and will not give him real time, feedback of what's actually happening. But in this case, I'm not excited about it. I'm not excited for a number of reasons. The insincerity of the government, the insincerity of the person that's leading the government. So I do believe he was coerced to do this. I do believe he was made to do this. And if you look at the speech, you can see that it was read. He did not. Yes, I know that a lot of presidents, have their speeches written, but this looks to me like something that was written and handed down to him. So the way he pronounced some of the words shows that these are not his, own words. He did not have any impute in them. He probably just studied the words and reeled them out. When a person who is committed to the well-being of the people speaks, you'll see that he will be more of speaking from the heart than reading from a script. So that's really why I'm not excited about that speech yesterday.
Yeah, but some people are saying an important time to make this kind of address, given that the NLC now is threatening to go full throttle with their protest against the fuel subsidy. They've been lamenting that there are no palliatives at hand to cushion the effects on the people. The transportation fares have skyrocketed, food fares have skyrocketed. The president talked about long and short term remedies to these things, imputing more into the agricultural sector, providing buses, and all of this. But the thing that struck me first was that they've said the federal government has now said that they've saved 1 trillion naira in 2 months since the removal of that fuel subsidy. How does that, how do you feel about that, and what do you think should be the approach to what these monies are channeled to?
Okay. Before I talk about the money saved from the removal of the subsidy, I want to talk about the NLC.
Yes.
No serious-minded Nigerian trusts the NLC.
You don't?
No, no,
Wow.
no. Nigerians, since the days of Oshomole, NLCs and labor unions have ceased to be, for the people. These people have become people put there by the government by directly or indirectly, right? And a lot of times they're given fat, kickbacks, and they just make a lot of noise and then shut up eventually. Now, when was the last time NLC actually conducted a successful, march or
Protest.
protest? When was the last time? When was the last time NLC said we're really going on strike and went on strike? So I want to predict that the strike is not going to hold tomorrow. By this evening, we're probably going to hear news that NLC has called off the strike, and they've reached an understanding with the panel or whatever it is. NLC is not sincere. What's his name, Joe Ajero or
Yes,
whatever he is.
yes,
He's not
Joe Ajero.
sincere. He's not working for the people. He's not standing for the people, right? The last meeting they had at Abuja, Oshomole was the chairman of that party, I think he was. You saw him frolicking with Oshomole, bent over the table like
The federal government sent Oshomole being a labor leader
That's right, I
to
understand. But
negotiate. Yes.
Oshomole, since his days of the labor union, has ceased to be for the people. Oshomole has become a typical Nigerian who doesn't care about the people, a typical Nigerian politician who cares about how much he can take away, from his office. Oshomole has ceased to be for the people since that time. Yes, Oshomole was a good labor union leader. You know, in the days of Oshomole, when he threatened to strike or to go on protest, governments shake, right? Because he did a good job. But since Oshomole became a politician, he became like I'm trying not to use a bad word here,
Yeah.
but he's become like the typical Nigerian who is corrupt and doesn't care about the people anymore, right? So Ajero was there for looking with Oshomole. I saw him bent over, you know, like he was starstruck. He has just met his icon. He's just met a celebrity who he's looking up to. Bent over and talking to Oshomole like a small boy to a big man. He did not have the posture of a labor union leader, right? And so when I saw that image, I knew that nothing was going to come out of this. So they probably walked away from there. I don't have evidence, but they probably walked away from there with fat checks, right? And they come off and came out of there and called off, you know, whatever action they were going to take. We want to see a labor union that will be pro the people, a labor union that will stand for the people, you know, without fear of favor, stand and speak truth to the government, right? And this is high time for the labor union to do that. It's really time for the labor union to stand up and actually tell this government that you haven't done well. Now, coming back to what the government saved, I'm not surprised. You know my stance on subsidy. We have talked about this. I've always said the subsidy needs to be removed. But it's not rocket science to remove the subsidy, right? There are certain things you're supposed to put in place before the removal. But the way this government went about it was highly irresponsible, right? The first day, I wouldn't even say the first day in office, on your swearing in, you just decided to announce that the subsidy is off. You must have known that people will suffer. You must have known that the price of fuel controls every other price in this country. The price of food, the price of transportation, the price of power, everything is tied to, you know, the cost of petroleum, right? And not just petroleum, but the petroleum products, right?
Yeah.
And you irresponsibly struck that off and threw Nigerians into suffering. Many Nigerians are suffering. Many Nigerians have died as a result of the removal of this subsidy. So telling me that you saved 1 trillion, it's not news. Because yes, if you remove the subsidy, you will save money, absolutely, because we know it's a corrupt regime. But the point is, before removing the subsidy, you should have made sure that there are certain things put in place. For example, you should have increased the minimum wage.
Before removing the subsidy.
Before removing the subsidy, you should have made alternative arrangements for multiple sources of supply of this product. Now, I have always said, when I wasn't here, I didn't talk to you when the Dangote whatever was
Refinery.
was inaugurated, right?
Yes, yes.
But Dangote thing is, yes, it's good news that when Dangote begins to export, Nigeria will have a lot of forex from that. But the only person that benefits from that refinery is Dangote, right? And so what you see happening, the removal also is going to benefit Dangote and the stakeholders. And Lagos State is a stakeholder, of course, right? So
The Nigerian government is a stakeholder too.
yeah, well, yes, 20% stakeholder. Yes, so they're going to benefit from it. So the more Dangote sells a barrel of, how do you call it, a liter of
A barrel.
a barrel of finish the refined ones.
Okay.
The higher he sells per liter, the more money the government makes, right? So when they inaugurated Dangote and gave him that monopoly, they lost every chance to solve the petroleum problem in Nigeria. Because what you should have done is, yes, give Dangote the license, but give other multiple operators licenses.
I think there are licenses, available to other people who want to build refineries and refine, including those who want to go into modular refineries
Yes.
to delve into that. But then the money that has been saved now,
Yes.
there are two things I think that are biting on Nigerians since the removal of fuel subsidy. The cost of transportation has almost tripled,
Absolutely.
since
Absolutely. It's
the
expected.
removal of that subsidy. And
Yes.
then food prices also, have also gone up because of that. These two things, the president mentioned, interventions. He talked about 1,000 CNG buses.
3,000.
3,000 CNG buses that the federal government would help get in and, spread across the 36 states of the federation to
Yes.
help ease the transportation costs for people. Is this enough for you? Is this going to provide enough respite in the short term till we begin to see prices come down?
Yes, it will. It will for the middle class and the lower class of people in society,
Yeah.
because what we're going to see is cheaper transportation, which is really going to help people. And but my concern is that I think that money is is too much for the buses. I mean, 3,000 buses,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
For 100 billion.
Yes,
That's
100 billion.
that's a lot of money.
Spread from now till March of
Yeah, that's a lot
2024.
of money in my opinion. But absolutely, it will help because CNG is much cheaper, and so what we're going to see is lower transportation cost. And so when transportation is lower, then people can get to work. It will actually give them some kind of breathing space. People are spending so much on transportation, and a lot of people are having to work. So it's a stressful time for the families, for the poor families in Nigeria today. But then the thing is, they keep talking about, that solution is going to help a lot of middle class and poor families. Well, these are not the only people in society, right? These are not the only people in society. And transportation need is not the only need that families have, right? The fact that minimum wage is still 30,000 with every other thing expensive, highly expensive in Nigeria is really very insensitive. Right. If you look at that, I know you're going to get to it, but you can see that he didn't put any figures on
The
minimum wage.
minimum wage,
He
yeah.
said your minimum your salary review is coming.
yeah.
I think that's not sincere. Put a figure to it. You put a figure on almost every other thing. Put a figure on this one. He doesn't want to be held to his own words, right? So that's not really sincere. Now, the first thing that you should do is increase salaries. Me and you, we've talked about this many times. The first thing any sensible government should have done way before the subsidy removal is increase the minimum wage, right? Give the people a living wage. It's not even the minimum wage anymore. Give the people a minimum wage that is determined by the realities of the day-to-day, living in Nigeria.
So the 1 trillion naira should be channeled into this. Maybe 1 trillion naira savings should be looked at.
Absolutely, go to salaries.
Salaries.
Go to salaries.
Immediately.
But you see, much more important. Yeah, there's some of the things that on this policies that he reeled out that are good. Okay, the investments that are going to MSMEs and all of that.
Yes.
It's absolutely good, right? Any right-thinking government should think about, investing a lot in MSMEs, because the MSMEs are the ones actually that move the economy forward, right? I'm not happy that he's talking about 70 billion to 75 enterprises.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He said 1 billion per enterprise, 75 billion to
Yes.
75 enterprises.
So that's crazy. You can't do that.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. If it's actually sincerely implemented, it will create jobs, right? But then the point is that MSMEs grow the economy, not the big unicorns, right? These big companies, yes, employ labor, but how many people do they employ? But the most employers of labor are the MSMEs. Look at the Obweteme market alone. How many people are employed at Obweteme market? Every day you see people, thronging over to Obwete, and when they dismiss, you see, when the market is closed, you see traffic everywhere, the roads are blocked and all of that. A lot of these people are not shop owners, they're employees. So just that little Obwete there is employing thousands of labor, right? Now look at all the shops, True Ogui Road, New Heaven, Wani, Achara Loud, all of these shops employ labor. So the MSMEs employ the most labor in any economy, and they are the ones that drive the economy because they give the people spending ability. Right? So what government should do is put money into these MSMEs. That's why I like that policy of giving the money. But are they really going to get the money? Or is this another avenue for corrupt politicians to steal money and claim they give them to the MSMEs? What are going to be the vetting processes, right? So I am all for giving the MSMEs money if they are going to get it. Because when you give the MSMEs money, you stimulate spending. They employ more labor, they pay more salaries, better salaries. And the more people earn, the more they spend. And the more people spend, the stronger businesses grow, and eventually government makes some IGR through taxes and all of that. So that's a welcome development. But there are a number of things that are on this speech that I listened to that are not really very sincere.
Like what?
Like I said, he just talked about salary review, but he didn't put a date to it. He didn't put a figure to it.
Yeah,
right?
the NLC has a steering committee meeting for today at noon. Maybe the president or the federal government would have representatives there to negotiate. Maybe at the end of today, we would get a figure. That's me trying to preempt what.
Sorry to cut in there. The other thing I'm wondering what he means is that he talked about the 70 billion for 75. And then he came down and talked about it. Right after that, he talked about the MSMEs getting 125 billion. That is 50 billion as grants to nano businesses. And 50, that is where they're going to get 50K. 50K will be going to 50,000 will be going to 1,300 nano businesses. Those are MSMEs, right?
Yes.
Now, he came somewhere again and talked about another 125 billion. Another 125 billion for MSMEs, I think.
Mm.
I wrote it down somewhere. I can't find it. So I don't understand that. So why is why are MSMEs getting 125 billion here, and then somewhere else they're getting 70 or 75 billion? Where is that? I know I wrote it
Yeah,
down somewhere.
I think the 75 billion is for
Yes, he talked about
bigger
75 billion for
bigger
another
enterprises.
100,000 MSMEs.
Yeah.
So are you double funding them? You see, that's why I said that this is not his idea. This was written and handed over to him to just read to Nigerians. So I don't see any sincerity in this, to be honest with you. I don't see how this is going to change anything. These are lofty ideas to give Nigerians hope. And also, when you give a man hope, he defers, anarchy. When you give him hope that probably in the next 6 months things are going to be better, right? So if he had plans of anarchy, he will defer that and then give you a little bit of, cut you a little bit of slack, right? I don't understand how you have, 125 billion for MSMEs on one hand, and then somewhere else you're talking about another, 75 billion for
Okay,
100,000
it's a
MSMEs.
long speech.
It doesn't make sense.
I
I listened
think,
to the whole thing
yes,
and
spread,
took notes.
yes,
Yes,
true. Spread to a number of things. He tried
yes,
to, segment these things and how he intends to put out the money. But the thing you've talked about now, give somebody some respite
yeah,
so that they do not, show all their angst
yes.
in the short run. But I want to ask you, what's more important now for the federal government to provide? The short-term, cushions or the long-term lofty plans that you've talked about that they've painted the pictures? What should have more of this 1 trillion naira going into it?
Put money in the pockets of the people,
Mm.
and good money too, right? What you should do now is that they've removed the subsidy, so I know it's going to be hard for them to come back and say, okay, we're just going to take it back and then put it, how do you say, do the subsidy so that
Yeah.
actually prices can come down. But have you heard on the news that in the last 3, 4, 5 years that nobody was paid subsidy? Did you read that somewhere?
Nobody
Where,
was paid.
yeah, the importers, petroleum importers, said that nobody was paid subsidy the last 4 or 5 years, and so they're talking about the need to remove the subsidy when actually the last administration weren't paying subsidies.
Mm.
So where was it? Where were the monies going, right? So there are a number of things that should happen. One is to start a process of actually prosecuting people who have stolen money in the last administration,
True.
right? Start that to begin with. So let's find out where all these monies went and see how we can recover some of them. Now, when we recover some of these monies, what should be take a top priority on the list for this government should be putting, like I said, putting money in the pockets of the people, because you've made life very hard for the citizens. So the only way you can bring some kind of hope and some kind of peace to them is to make sure they have money to spend on the things they have need for. They have need for food. Food has gotten very expensive.
Very.
How do you call it? What they call a pinta of gari
Mhm.
has gotten very expensive. Now, where you used to pay 100 naira to transport yourself to, now you're paying about 300 naira.
Yeah.
And people are still earning 30,000. How is that right? It's not right. So the cost of living has become really very unbearable in Nigeria today. So what you should do is that everybody that's earning 30,000 naira should be earning 90,000, at least 90,000 in the current state of things. So what you should do is provide money for the states, provide money for business owners, right? So that you can stimulate some kind of spending ability, right? And people should have money to solve this problem. Once you do that, you'll actually get the people on your side.
Okay.
People are suffering. So if you can alleviate their suffering, you'll make them. That's the only way to buy time.
Yeah.
Is to make sure they have money.
What about the issue of the flotation of the naira? He mentioned it,
Okay.
and how it has affected the price of commodities too,
Yes.
because a lot of our day-to-day commodities are imported.
Imported, yes.
Yes. So,
Yes.
as a business person, how do you
Yes.
speak to what the president has done with the flotation of the naira and the removal of the fuel subsidy all at the same time?
Yeah, that's
Has
it.
this complicated issues?
Yes, it has. Like I said, they're a very insensitive set of people, right? They're not pro the people. If a government is actually pro the people, what you would think about is, okay, I'm going to implement these policies that are going to make life very difficult for Nigerians. So what do I do first so that when we implement these policies, Nigerians won't suffer so much. Now, if only one Nigerian died because of a policy, it's already a bad policy. But I guarantee you that hundreds of Nigerians have died since he entered office, because people can't pay hospital bills anymore. Right? People can't feed anymore. A lot of kids can't go to school. We're talking about, a heightened level of out of school kids. A lot of more school kids have gone out of school because their parents can't get them to school anymore. Right? So what I think actually is, sorry, what was that question again?
The flotation of the naira.
Yes. So what I think he should have done is not just he practically deregulated that sector. What you should have done is shut down all the BDCs and all the black markets, right? Because really, they are the ones contributing to the corruption. Between, I've said this before, and somebody who listens to you attacked me on this. So there is a high level corruption going between the central bank, the how do you call them, the commercial banks, and the black markets, right? So if you can actually cut out that flow of cash from the central bank to the black markets, what you will do is you'll have enough money in the banks, right? And so when you have enough money in the banks, then you'll afford to sell at a lower rate. So what you've done now is that you've let the black market determine the price for the official. And so that Nigeria, with the lack of industries, imports majority of everything we consume. So what that simply means is that where we used to get $4.50 to buy $1, now we're getting it at, say, almost 900. So what that simply means is that what we are paying for the unit cost of the dollar now has risen. So that means we're spending more to buy the things that we used to buy. So when we bring them in to make profit as business people, what we do is we have to mark up, add more money to it, and that simply means that the cost of things will go up. And so with the minimum wage pegged at 30,000 naira, Nigerians can't afford to buy those things. And that's right, if Nigerians are not able to buy those things, the importers won't be able to sell. Yes. The retailers won't be able to sell. What is going to happen? Businesses are going to go down. If businesses go down, they sack more people, right? And the more people they sack, the more unemployed people on the street. That increases, criminality, prostitution, and tendencies for anarchy, right? So every right-thinking government should have known that all of this will be, the multiplier effect of that, single policy. So like I said, what he should have done is cut out the black markets and make sure that you provide the money direct to the banks and just the banks, and have an oversight, an oversight system that ensures that things are done the right way.
So it seems like what the federal government is doing is, or most of what it's doing now is afterthoughts. After the president had made maybe mistakes in your own thoughts. The first things were not put first.
Yes.
And now we are having to, go back and try to right the wrongs.
That's right.
The president says in order to, put some cushion to the hunger that is rife in the nation at this
That's
point.
another funny one.
200,000 metric tons of grains. I have some people who have reacted to this. Somebody said, the Buhari administration put out, it was just in 2021 and 2022, 40,000 metric tons of grains from strategic reserves. I don't know what strategic reserves are. And 60,000 metric tons of grains again that's making it about 100.
Yeah.
I'm asking where these strategic reserves are and where they are coming from, because we know the war in Ukraine has affected the grains supply across the globe. The president says 200,000 metric tons of grains from strategic reserves to spread to 774 local governments across the nation, to households, to help them. And I wonder, I don't know what you make of this, honestly.
It's funny. My first reaction to that when I heard it was, where is the strategic reserves? Where do we have all those grains? Mm-hmm. How did we get them? Did we import them? Did we farm them? How? Where are the silos? Where are the storages? Have you ever heard about Nigerian government having a strategic storage system where we store? Have you ever heard about that? You're in the media.
Yeah, I've never,
We've never heard about that.
to be
So
sincere.
that's why I said a lot of things
Yeah.
he put out yesterday are not really very sincere, because my question is, where are the grains? Where did you get them from? Were they farmed by Nigerian farmers? Who are these farmers? How much did you pay them for the grains? In the southeast, how many of these strategic reserves do we have? Because if you talk about government storage
It should
system,
be
you talk about
spread.
the Amore,
Yeah.
right? you have some in the south, you have south in the west. It's spread out, right? So we are in the southeast. Where is the strategic storage facility of the federal government in the southeast? It shouldn't just be in Abuja. And so if it's in Abuja, where in Abuja is it? Where is it? So for me, it's made up. It's actually made up and not sincere, right? So probably what they want to do is start to import, or start to get kind of mop up from farmers, and all of that, and it's not really, it's not.
The president also mentioned the 500 billion for palliatives, that he's
Yeah.
going to take out a chunk of it, 200 billion, and give to farmers, 50 billion for rice and maize cultivation, 50 billion for beans and cassava cultivation.
Yeah, there he said it was
and
200 billion, right?
Yes.
And so I don't know
Where the
that's
100 billion went to. I found that really funny too.
yeah.
because I
So
didn't get.
I was wondering. He said, so is it 50 billion for rice and then 50 billion for maize?
Yeah.
Because he
maybe,
said,
okay, maybe.
yeah. So that, because he said each,
Yeah,
that
because
grammar wasn't
it
really
wasn't clear. It
properly.
wasn't clear.
Yeah, it wasn't
So
properly
maybe
structured.
rice, maize, beans,
Yes.
cassava, 50 billion each. But
Yes.
the way he put it out,
Yes,
in
it
the
wasn't
speech,
quite clear.
It seemed
Yes,
like 100 billion was
the grammar
missing.
didn't make sense at all. So, but I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he meant 50 billion for rice and maize, and then 50 billion for rice, 50 billion for maize, then 50 billion for wheat, and 50 billion for cassava. I don't know what he means by that, right? But any money you give to the farmer that gets to the farmer benefits Nigeria, right? I've always said this: agriculture is key, for the growth of any economy, because agriculture serves three purposes actually. One is that it provides raw material for the processing industries. And I've always advocated, investing in the middle sector of agriculture, which is processing, right? We talk about export. Export is good, but when we export raw materials, we ship out our jobs, right? So we should invest in the farmer, give him enough money and funds and input to produce enough, and actually encourage more people to go into farming. When we can have a healthy farming sector, what that does for us is that they provide enough raw materials for the middle ground of agriculture, which is processing. Now, they provide enough for the Nigerian family to feed, and they also provide enough to support both export and that middle sector, right? I advocate processing before exporting, because that way we create more jobs. That way we build more industries. We decide how much we want to sell. When you ship raw materials, a lot of times the exporter is under pressure to find a buyer and then sell quickly before his products begin to go rancid. But when we process, we increase shelf life, and then we can control prices, which is something similar to what Ghana did recently. Ghana used to send out all its cocoa, but now they're saying no. We're going to do I think it's a 30-70 or 60-40 exportation plan. That is, we process 60% locally and export only 40%. So that's a welcome development. That way you create jobs, you make more money through export. And so that's, if they can actually do it, I will be happy. But the problem is that we've seen the hypocrisy of government all through the years, where they tell you we have trader money. And so every trader is going to get so and so and so. At the end of the day, you ask the traders, did you get any money? And the traders would tell you, I didn't get anything, right? They would tell us they have input for farmers. And at the end of the day, the farmers don't get anything. And people turn around and take those inputs and sell them, resell them. I sent somebody, we needed to buy mosquito nets, just a couple of weeks ago, and somebody went to the market and bought this mosquito net for 1,000. I looked at the quality of the mosquito net. It was too good for 1,000. I'm like, this mosquito net is too cheap. I think this must be one of the mosquito nets that's made for sale. And so we looked at it and we actually saw that these are not for sale. So these are United Nations. I'm trying to paint a picture here. These are United Nations mosquito nets sent to Nigeria to be given to Nigerians free of charge. But some head of paracetamol somewhere will take that, pack it in the warehouse. When people forget about it, they pull them out and actually sell them to traders, right? So this is what we see with agriculture, with farmers, with input, with funding for farmers. At the end of the day, you will see corrupt government officials go behind and take these facilities for themselves and their cronies, and the real farmer doesn't get the money. How does that benefit the nation? How does that benefit food production? And how does that benefit the Nigerian families?
All right, let's go for the news. When we return, we'll continue the conversation. State of the nation, given the president's address to the nation yesterday evening. I have with me here the MD of DEFCON Limited, Mr. Tony Odukwe, a business development and international trade expert. We'll be right back after the news.
From the capital of the Southeast to the world.
This is 94.5 Urban Radio Newsbreak.
Good morning and welcome to news updates in 94.5 seconds. My name is Yagazie Obiwani. Youths from the five southeast states took to the streets of Enugu yesterday in support of efforts to end sit at home, saying the region's economy was being crippled. A federal high court sitting in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, has acknowledged an order restraining the Judicial Panel of Inquiry on recovery